Today I'm here with Keith Hanson. Keith, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. This is it's a great opportunity. Thanks for having me, and it's good to see you here at CPAC.
Oh, it's so good to see you here at CPAC. It's such a lively atmosphere, and it's so fun to come together with people who are like-minded.
Indeed.
And able to be a voice. We, obviously here at FreeSpace, we value community and communication and bringing the two together, which is also kind of a pillar in your life.
Indeed. Doing terrestrial radio, talk radio since 2008. And so really it's bringing together people, I mean not in a physical sense, but certainly people tuning in to the broadcast.
Absolutely.
To reach and teach and inspire people about what makes America great and what we need to do to continue this experiment in self-government called the United States. And
yes.
we're on the precipice. We're on the precipice of destruction in this country. It's not too late to pull it back.
Yeah.
But people really need to take inventory of who they are and what they're about and what's important to them in their lives.
Yeah.
And then the people that they choose to represent them in these legislative bodies, they have to be outward manifestations of those values.
Absolutely.
We need quality people to represent people who don't have a voice in these legislative bodies.
Well, and it's an interesting point you bring up that we have to know our very core values and live through those and be able to have the people represented that represent us in those ways. But the core values that families live by nowadays has evolved. How have you even seen that evolve from your position in radio?
I mean, certainly from the traditional family values to this new sense of family values. Family values are pretty much whatever it is that I say that they are.
Yeah.
And it's highly subjective. Well, who are you? It's almost like the postmodern concept of what's real and what isn't. Well,
right.
My reality is, and your reality is this, and who are you to question my reality? Well, family values are family values, period. It's what makes the family strong. It's what keeps the family together. And it's not simply open to subjective application and subjective interpretation, which we see far too often. Well, it's whatever it is that I want it to be. Okay, great. So let's take that and apply that in every other aspect of our lives. Well, law is simply what I interpret it to be, and so it may be right to you, but it may not be right to me. That would be an utterly chaotic society.
Absolutely.
Kind of almost like what we're in right now.
We're experiencing a society that is led by emotions.
Yes.
So
very much so.
And it's got us on this line that's teetering in not the most healthiest of directions. In your opinion, what is going to get us back on track?
I think first and foremost, it's really an inventory of what is right and what is wrong personally. You could talk about the 10 Commandments and just say that's a pretty good roadmap for how you should live your life morally and ethically. I don't mean you have to be puritanical in your approach to life, but understanding certainly what is right and what is wrong, and understanding that it's not all about you.
Yeah.
That we cannot exist in a me-centric society. That when we say, for instance, the Pledge of Allegiance, we don't say with freedom and justice for all. We say with liberty and justice for all. And what is the difference between freedom and liberty? Freedom is the ability to do whatever you want when you want with no accountability. But liberty is the recognition that freedom, in order to be equitable, must be, and I have to be careful using those words, okay? It has to be equitable to the masses because there is an impact that my behavior will have on other people.
Yeah.
And so my behavior comes with an inherent set of responsibilities. So liberty is the responsible exercise of freedom. The example that I use is I can drive through your neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning if I need to, or even if I just wanted to. I have the right to listen to my car stereo, but I have a right to I have a responsibility to keep the volume at a level that doesn't disturb your right to enjoy your peace and quiet if that's what you choose. And I think that's really what it is. Understanding that, yes, you have rights and you have freedoms, but there are inherent responsibilities that are unwritten. And think about this, 13 pages of parchment paper set this nation free. It created this nation, it birthed this nation. And today our tax code alone is 75,000 pages. Look at how many laws that we have. We have laws because people don't know how to conduct their day-to-day affairs.
Absolutely.
In that mindset. So if you have a deficiency in a person's behavior and there's no accountability for that action, you create an opening where a government representative can step in and say, no, we have to make a law about that.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard people say, I think there was even a TV show made about it, there ought to be a law.
Yeah.
Because people can't figure out how to exist in society.
Well, and we've seen such huge backlash in these different cities where the laws are actually being taken down, and it's causing more chaos, it's causing more crime. You have a law enforcement background.
Yes.
You go ahead and you teach law enforcement how to react with active shooters.
Correct.
As being somebody who's very, very pro Second Amendment, what even does the liberty and the freedoms for the average, normal, everyday citizen carry over into that aspect of life?
Well, certainly, we have a responsibility to hold people who intentionally go out and commit crimes, or and may not necessarily be intentional, but it may be an abandonment of a person's individual standard of care. So the expectation is you conduct yourself in a certain way. Drunk driving, for instance.
Yeah.
If I go out and I drink to the point that I don't have a clear conscience and clear thought, well, then it's not my fault that I got behind the wheel. No, there's an expectation that if you know you're going to go out and drink, that you're going to take some steps to ensure that you're able to get yourself home without having to get behind the wheel of a car. That people have to, again, be accountable and responsible for their actions.
Yeah.
And think about how those affect other people.
Yeah.
And so people who are either going out and acting negligently and irresponsibly, or people who are going out with clear criminal intent to commit crimes, crimes against property and crimes against persons, that they're held accountable.
Yeah.
And if the government, who is tasked with the responsibility of holding those people accountable, can't do their job and do their job effectively, then listen, it's up to me and the people that I care about to keep themselves safe.
Yeah.
And law enforcement has no duty to protect any individual in society. People think that because the protect and serve is on the cruiser, that somehow law enforcement has an obligation to protect you. They don't.
It's interesting that nobody talks about that.
Nobody ever talks about that. But there are multiple Supreme Court cases that have ruled that it's impossible to have any reasonable expectation that a law enforcement officer is going to be able to provide protective services. They just can't. And so the courts have absolved them of that responsibility, because if a police officer, for instance, is 30 seconds too late and there's a property crime that occurs, or a personal injury that occurs, or a death that occurs, well, then a tort has been created. And that tort can be settled in civil court. So if there was a lawsuit that was filed and a judgment that was entered against law enforcement agencies every time they were 30 seconds too late, they literally would have been sued into oblivion. There's not enough money to defend against them.
Yeah.
So the courts have said, listen, your job is to enforce laws. That's why we call them law enforcement.
Yeah.
If you want your nouns protected, people, places, and things, then you enter into a contract with a private security firm who, for consideration, money paid, will fulfill a contract to protect those nouns. So I have a choice. I can either spend money on my personal protection, or I can choose to be responsible and protect myself and the people that I care about.
So in speaking of the realm of responsibility, liberty, and freedom, can you give our audience today one word of encouragement that it encompasses an action step in those?
Wow, that's probably the toughest question that I've gotten so
far.
I would say, first of all, pray. Pray for guidance and clarity. And second thing I would do is, again, take inventory of what is important to you, what is valuable to you if you have a family, what's valuable and important to your family.
Absolutely.
And then look for people who embody those values, and especially when it comes to politicians. If you're having a conversation with somebody who is seeking an elected position, have the conversation. Have the courage of conviction to ask them what their convictions are, and whether or not they're courageous enough to stand up for what is right and articulate that belief. Not give a wishy-washy answer, not beat around the bush, but come right out and say, listen, do you believe in traditional marriage? Yes or no? Yes, I do. I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. Period. Do you believe in abortion rights, or are you pro-life or pro-choice? I am absolutely, without a question, I am 100% pro-life. And have the courage of conviction.
Absolutely.
And that may mean that you're not popular with somebody. But this isn't a popularity contest. It's about doing what is right and having the courage to be disliked for all the right reasons.
Absolutely. I think that is such incredible encouragement and truth that transcends time. Pray, be bold and courageous, identify your values, and vote for people that represent those values. Keith, thank you so much for your time today and just for sharing your heart with us.
My pleasure.
Where can people find your show?
So you can certainly check out RAM, that's RAMTV.live, RAMTV.live for the Right America Media Network. They can also check out KeithOnTheAir.com. That's KeithOnTheAir.com.
Amazing. Thank you, Keith.
My pleasure. Thank you. God bless.